Basketball is back tonight after having the day off on Tuesday. 76ers start off a 2-game trip in Los Angeles. The Clippers on Wednesday tonight, the Los Angeles Lakers on Friday before returning home, and Paul George goes back to Los Angeles. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Pregame Show presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens, Brianna with us, all of you on another late night as the road trip continues out west. And this time we get Paul George in game number 2 of his Sixers career, going back home, and you know he's going to want to show off inside Derek, the Intuit Dome. We get a chance to see what that's like from afar. But Paul George back in Los Angeles tonight, an opportunity to pick up their second win and maybe their first of this trip. And this is another good opportunity for the 76ers coming off of a close 2-point loss on Monday.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently the Intuit Dome has a lot of really nice bathrooms. Steve Ballmer cannot stop talking about
the toilet king of Los Angeles, Steve Ballmer.
No, I mean, this is another chance to pick up a game. It'll be real nice to see Paul George in game 2. I think we all saw the immediate impact of just having another professional basketball player on the floor to help stabilize some of that offense. Obviously, they did not pull out previous game. We all talked about the last 3 minutes and the way that they gave that one away. But here is a Clippers team that obviously has their own injury problems, specifically Kawhi. Outside of that, they're pretty healthy, but have not been playing necessarily all that inspired of basketball. They played a pretty tough stretch of games here. Although they did lose a real bad one recently to the Blazers. Outside of that, though, most of their losses have been defensible and against good teams. That being said, this is a winnable game, especially when you're looking at it. Obviously, we now know that we will be out 3 games without Joel Embiid, so that return is delayed a little bit. You've got to find a way to scratch and claw and not come back with a 1-8 record before the big man gets back, and this is a prime opportunity.
Yeah, so I feel like we talk a lot about Paul George in the offseason and even recently as, that's the type of guy that you need to combat the other team's best wings in the playoffs, right? Especially a team like Boston that's got a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, several other, high-level players over there. This is a matchup with Kawhi Leonard out where you say, they don't have anybody to combat Paul George, right? Like, there's no one that they can.
Nick Batum, baby.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Nico, and the Sixers wanted to keep him, obviously, and have him play with Paul George. But there's nobody over there that you're looking at like, that guy should be able to deal with Paul George for 4 quarters. So that is one thing that you feel really good about coming into this matchup is, all right, PG's back. He's got a game under his belt. Presumably the game conditioning is a little bit better. There were no, as far as we heard, no concerns about how he responded, how his body responded following that first game in Phoenix. So that's a positive that things are just, base level, normal, PG. And that's a good place to be after the layoff to start the year. End of the day, this is just, they are at a point now where it's none of these games are, it's good to have, but you don't need it. You got to start winning some games, right? And against a Clippers team that has been competitive, but not especially good, with Tyrese and with Paul George, both available tonight. Everybody else in the normal rotation available, aside from Mr. Suspension himself, Joel Embiid. This is one I think you have to go and get, and it's going to start with Paul has to play better, right? I think we were all happy to say first game back, a little bit of rust, a little bit of unfamiliarity with his teammates, give him a pass for the other night. He's got to come out and be a lot sharper tonight.
So here's what I don't want. I don't want for what we saw in the final 4 minutes of that game where when he let things come to him through the first 3 quarters, and you can even say the first few minutes of the fourth quarter before you got to the guts of the game, where it was winning time, and we saw him doing a little bit too much, as we talked about in the post game. I don't want him. He's a pro, but hey, human nature takes over sometimes where you're back home, you're back against your former team. They did not want to give you the contract that you felt you were worthy of, and you come back into town and try to, again, do a little bit too much. And it's not that it's going to happen late in the game. It's that could be something that happens earlier in the game where it takes away from the offense that you're trying to build and the chemistry you're trying to build together with the rest of your teammates. When he was injured in that Atlanta Hawks game in the preseason, again, we've talked about this before, just to bring it up. He mentioned having not just the fact that he's missing games and not building the continuity with his teammates on the floor. Well, again, we saw some of that go out the window at the end, and they lost the game. He took a bad shot. He forgot the time. He did not know time and situation, and we talked about that. He cannot go into this one tonight again looking to stick it to Steve Ballmer because he's sitting courtside and he has a chance to do that. Now, if he does it within the flow of the game and he tonight has the hot hand, by all means, but don't let the personal part of things get in the way of what is needed here for a team that has missed him and Embiid desperately and now may have an opportunity playing off of a game that they should have won, not could have won. They should have won on Monday, and a chance here tonight against a team that's not as good as the team you faced on Monday, a chance to clean up, make up for that here tonight. Hopefully your teammates surrounding you play better, but you don't take it as a personal thing to defeat the Clippers just because that's your former team.
No, and you don't want him to take it as a personal thing, but I do think this is a matchup that he can have some success against. So if he comes out early, he's getting to his spots, the shots are going in, he feels a lot more in rhythm than he did in game one, then have at it, Paul. Like, this is still a team where it's not like they have. Look, I can't.
Derek's cat is a side character.
Part of the show.
It really is
Co-host
amazing.
this whole
She was
week.
sleeping for like 2 hours before the show starts. And the moment I look into a camera, she's like, oh, I know what's going on here. I need to get on the internet. Thank you.
It's
I
really
appreciate
funny
it.
too, Derek, because I'm trying to picture my equivalent of that, my 70-pound dog just like walking across the camera as I'm doing the show. I would be a lot more disruptive, thankfully.
Well, the best part is she's now like, scratching up against my keyboard. So if she hits the escape key and I just disappear, I apologize. I'll be back on in a second. No, but I mean, this is a situation where Paul can definitely get going. Depending on how the game is going. Like I said, it's not like they have an abundance of offensive talent right now. They still have Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and a bunch of role players. So you don't want to put any kind of upper limit on how much he can try to take over the game. It just has to be within the flow of the offense, because I do think Tyrese can come out here and find some matchups to exploit as well. So I think it'll be fun to watch them try to find that balance. Maybe they can play off of each other a little better than they did in game one and start to develop some of that chemistry that they will need to develop, not only in games, so they can be good to go in April and May when the games really matter, but also so they can find ways to win games when Joel Embiid isn't here, because not only do they have this game, but they have two more. And then they probably have, if we're being honest, another 15 or so at the bare minimum that they will have to try to find ways to win. So that is a key subplot to the game here and also to any future contests coming up.
No.
He
said it was going to happen. He said it was going to happen. It was the cat. The cat is a side part of the show.
No.
Said it was going to happen, so it happened. He talked it and he spoke it into existence there, Kyle, as that one happened. But again, look, I understand here, and he's back just like that.
She hit the F5 key, baby.
It happens.
No.
It happens when they walk across the key. Again, when we're home, she's a part of the show. We just have to accept it for what it is. You should get her own camera on the side somewhere so we have that.
I've actually thought I almost have to get her own office chair, because I can't even finish my comment. Just go ahead, move on.
We have a Blue Chew ad after the show too. After the game.
So wow, now we're really going there.
We're talking. Go ahead. I'm not even going to touch that one.
But no, listen. No. Again, if he gets going, because he could have a favorable matchup tonight with no Paul George. Derek Jones is out there. He's a decent defender with some length that can keep up with him. We know he can move laterally. He can move side to side, so he'll be fine. But Paul George is a better player. He should be able to take advantage of that. And the same goes to with Tyrese Maxey. So, again, just to point it out, it's not that he can't do it. I don't want him to force it. Flow. Let the flow happen like it was. He got good shots in the first three quarters. They just didn't fall. And that's because he's rusty, just coming back. Think he'll be fine. I just don't want him pressing too much just because he's playing against his former team. That said, we look into another guy who's facing his former team and one of his pupils, if you will, James Harden, taking on his former Sixers team, and Tyrese Maxey. Those two going head-to-head, Kyle. Tyrese Maxey, as we know, a team best 32 points against the Suns on Monday. James Harden has been having a really good season, just about 21, 10 assists on the season. rebounding the ball like he does, almost averaging a triple-double. We know what James Harden does. We saw it for a season and a half here in the Sixers uniform, but this is the first time we get to see them since the trade face off. Well, not see them face off because they did last season, but we get to see them again face off against each other tonight.
Yeah, and I hope that Tyrese is able to, if they're hunting switches to the degree that they have in recent games, they should be hunting James Harden pretty hard, right? Because James Harden's defensive strengths are quite literally his strength, right? If you put him in the post, he's able to hold up against a lot bigger and burlier players, guys who are, threes, fours, even centers situationally, because he's a very strong guy. But if you put him in space, you force him to move, you force him to chase people around screens.
I was going to say, just force him to pay attention.
Yeah, be an aware and attentive off-ball defender. That is where he gets in trouble very quickly. Now, Devon, you've already mentioned a few guys that they have some good defensive pieces over there. Nico, Derek Jones Jr., a Chris Dunn, like a bunch of different guys all throughout the lineup that I think are very solid. And I'm sure they will try to avoid the type of matchups that would put James Harden on Maxey, whether it's on ball or off ball. But the Sixers' prerogative should be make him work, right? Because that's the big thing with James. He wants to be the heliocentric, and I hate using that word, but it's the word everyone knows. The center of the offense, runs the show, uses the clock, and just sprays passes all over the floor on offense. And then he wants to take plays off on defense. That's been the book on him for a long, long time. And so the more you can make him work, the more you can exert his energy on that end of the floor, the tougher it is for him late into the game to be impactful as a shot maker and as a playmaker. So if Tyrese has any mission tonight, to me, that's got to be number one. It's like you're the guy who can really put pressure on James and on LA's defense. That's got to be 1, 2, and maybe 3 on their scouting report tonight.
And to be clear, I don't expect Harden to come out defending Maxey. You're going I'm kind of expecting Harden to defend like Caleb Martin, something like that.
Whoever's sitting in the corner is where you want James Harden.
So you've got to do something to force that switch, and that's going to be part on Maxey, recognizing time and situation and dialing something up. That's going to be part on James Harden, Nick Nurse, and really getting it in pregame of this is what you want to do. This is how you're going to draw that matchup out, and then just doing what you want. Here's what I want to say. Who do you think Maxey guards on the other team? Because I think in terms of just size, Norm Powell would be the natural matchup, but Norm Powell's coming out and shooting the ever-living heck out of the ball to start the season.
He's been real good to start.
So that would be a pretty tough matchup there.
Who does he guard? I mean, you can't really put him on Jones, but you could try to put him on Jones just because Jones works in that corner as well. The problem is he moves a lot, so will he get caught there on the baseline somewhere and gets himself in trouble? That could be an opportunity there.
Probably Terrence Mann, honestly.
Terrence Mann, yeah. Terrence Mann is the way to go, even though he's bigger, yes. But at least Maxey may be able to hold up a little bit more with that matchup there.
I think that's probably the goal, right? Like Derek Jones Jr., if you put him on him, maybe you can dare him to shoot a little bit. But if you get him in any kind of ball screen with Harden, you could just throw a lob over the top to him, over top of Maxey, and that's an easy dunk, easy layup, whatever it is. Norm Powell, I think, is not really going to hurt you if you put Maxey on him. Now, again, the battle will be the other way, right? What we're talking about with trying to force the Harden switch. James Harden is going to come down the floor and be like, hey, Tyrese Maxey, whoever he's guarding, that guy, come over, set a screen for me. And so it's going to be a back and forth to that respect. So we'll see. And look, we know that James Harden is going to do that quite often in this game. We know he's a smart enough, savvy enough player to identify something like that. Now it's just a matter of what can the Sixers do to help Tyrese and manage around that a little bit.
Yeah. So staying on the James Harden piece, what do you guys think of as we talked about them preseason, the Kawhi Leonard part hurts them a lot. Paul George coming to Philadelphia. It's his team. It's his run. As you said, Kyle, he loves this, and he'll go out there and he'll fill up the stat sheet, man. But he loves this kind of game. Tyrese Maxey knows him a little bit, but of course he can't stop him. Nobody can stop him. He's James Harden. He knows how to get things going. But in this type of environment, as you talked about, what are you making of his season so far with this Clippers team?
I mean, it's mostly what I expected, right? Like, I think James, for whatever his limitations are at the high end, is a really good regular season player. And he is somebody who, at least on offense, can drag a lot of guys along with him, right? Because he is quite comfortable as a high volume, high usage playmaker. We've seen him transition into more of this. He's certainly not a pure point guard or a traditional point guard, right? With all the, the step back threes and the shots that he tends to rely on at this stage of his career. But in terms of moving the chess pieces around the floor and making guys' lives easier that are, more pure catch and shoot players, or Zubats, for example, he's been awesome to start the year as well. We haven't even mentioned him yet, but he's eaten good playing with James Harden. So, I mean, I think for the Clippers, even though their record is not great, I think they're happy that they have Harden to try to get through this stretch without Kawhi Leonard, because he is the exact sort of player who can go from, all right, like the 2010 guy, or maybe even less scoring if Kawhi Leonard's around, to I can prop this offense up by myself if everybody else does their job, hits open shots, and really buys in on the other end of the floor. And I think thankfully for Ty Lue, they do have a group of players, or role players, I should say, that by and large are, competitive, wanting to defend type of players. So I think he's looked pretty good, but I don't think anything we've seen is like a massive surprise, right? He was pretty good for LA last year, and he continues to be pretty good right now.
Yeah. You have seen like his turnovers are up so far this year. You expect that because he's not really playing alongside a second star, certainly not a third star like he did last year. He's struggling a little bit from the perimeter. I don't necessarily think that is like, I think eventually that's going to catch back up and he's going to shoot well, but the playmaking is still there. Obviously he's scoring, just not as efficiently as he previously did. Yeah, no, he's playing well, but you're starting to see limitations both of him physically and also just the fact that he's trying to carry a group of role players that, he's not 28-year-old James Harden anymore. So you're going to see some dips in both the in the efficiency and the increase in turnovers, but he's playing okay. But the Clippers have like a pretty middling offense from what I remember. I think it's somewhere in the 20s. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to talent, not necessarily just James, but they are a team that you should be able to lock up pretty well.
Yeah, I believe they are 23rd in offense right now and 7th in defense, which is that in itself is a pretty good accomplishment when you consider Kawhi being out and it's just a bunch of role players. But I don't know how sustainable that'll be over time.
And they can be beaten at home. Right now, they're 1-4 at home. So it's not as if the Intuit Dome is a place that you cannot go in there and win just yet. So it's a spot where they can, in 2-minute warning, Al says the Clips won the other night. They're 1-4 at home. Yes. Appreciate that, Al. Yeah, they're 1-4 at home. So they can be beaten on that floor in that building. And we'll see if the Sixers can pick up their second win of the season by doing so in Los Angeles at the Intuit Dome. Got a couple of us had someone in there in the building tonight, and they sent a couple of pictures and videos of how great that place looks. Not that we haven't seen it before, but just coming from someone that that the place looks pretty awesome. And early trip to Los Angeles for the Sixers. Lakers playing right now, taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They'll be back on Friday to return home after their trip. All right, let's get to the keys to the game for this one here tonight. Derek, where would you start for your keys to getting this victory on the road?
Number one, I would say forced turnovers. Not only because, the Clippers are 28th in the league in turning the ball over, but also that's just a chance to give you an opportunity to get out on the break, try to get some easy points. Because no matter what, even with Maxey and now Paul George, Sixers obviously have been struggling in the half court. They've been struggling shooting from the perimeter. Hopefully that gets a little bit better now that Paul George is back. But you would love to get some cheapies. This is a team not only with with obviously James Harden, but just as a team, they turn the ball over a lot. They have a lot of live ball turnovers as well. They're going to give you a real opportunity to get out there. The Sixers need to capitalize on that.
Damn it, I hit the wrong button as I was trying to unmute my mic. A couple things stand out to me. So where we
Louis
started
sat
up
on
top,
your keyboard.
No, I can't blame Louis for that one. Two things jump out at me. One, what we talked about up top, and that's Paul George needing to punish some matchup advantages in this one. Two, and we harped on this guy the other day, they need a better game from Andre Drummond, because if they have to lean heavily on Yabusele as a 5 in this one, I think Harden and Zubats will eat them alive and pick and roll. Like, that's just it's not tenable to say, hey, we're going to play Yabu like 30 minutes in this game, because he is just not built to defend a pick and roll where the other big man is a fairly skilled finisher as a roll man and has a pretty significant size advantage against him. So they need Drummond to be much, much better so that they don't have this downstream impact of like, all right, we got to play Yabu and we'll try to make that work. But I don't think that's tenable against James Harden and against the big man they are going up against tonight. So I have a very close eye on how Drummond looks. I mean, he almost cannot be worse than he was to start that game the other night. And so hopefully,
sounds like a challenge.
I guess, but he was really bad. So I'm expecting a bounce back tonight. The hope I would think would be, maybe get him an early bucket, easy layup or a dunk on a duck in, something, get him in the right frame of mind, start of the game. So it does it. Excuse me. Wow. I'm really blowing it over here, sneezing in the middle of talking. Just so it doesn't spiral, right? Because he turned one turnover into 2, into 3, into now you're on the bench, and now you're overthinking it. And then you come back in the second half, and it's like he just never had a chance. So hopefully they can get him off to a better start.
Yeah, I agree with those. I'll just go to the other part of slowing Norman Powell down. And he's the leading scorer for this team at just under 25 points per game. And slowing him down, not that he's the head of the offense, but he's definitely taken advantage of some really good opportunity here for the Clippers without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard. He's their scorer, their guy. So while he and Harden are in the 20s, he is the one that leads them in scoring in the 7 games that they have. He's played really, really well. He can have off nights. We've seen him where he can score, but we've also seen him where he can have off nights. While he's had these consecutive games of 20+, he also had a dud in there mixed in too. So it's more than possible if the defense is out there with Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, maybe even Paul George, if he's the assignment there to slow him down, then that's something that, of course, they need to do to be able to really put a clamp on what happens here. A lot of times with the Clippers, we see it where Terrence Mann will get going against the Sixers. We'll see it where we already know about Nick Batum hitting a couple of 3-pointers. That could be some daggers for you. We saw it in a Sixers uniform, and we've seen it against the 76ers. So, but Norman Powell for me is the one. And also, just to add to it, as I mentioned, the 3-point shot, just to close out on the threes. Don't, make sure that the 3-point shooting is something that they pay attention to. Guys can get hot, as we know, with this team, with Harden, with Batum, with Powell, and Derek Jones can knock them down from time to time. Make sure you find your man behind the 3-point line, locate them, and do what you need to do against them to make it difficult. Make them put the ball on the floor, maybe attack the basket while Drummond's out there. Maybe, some rotation defense to cut off the driving lanes as well, but they have to defend that 3-point line and see if they can close that off and maybe have an advantage. They shot well again in the second quarter on. They shot well against the Phoenix Suns. The Sixers also need to counter and make sure they make those shots tonight against this Clippers defense.
Speaking of shooting well, not to rub some salt in the wound here, Buddy Hield just hit a dagger 3 in the final minute against Boston. He is 4 for 7 from 3, plus 17 on the night off the bench against the Boston Celtics. So
Playing well.
It would be nice to have a guy who could shoot like that on the team, but
yeah,
what can you do?
Yeah. Playing well. All right, the starters here for tonight for the 76ers in this one is pretty much back to normal, at this point with Paul George being here in the mix and in the lineup with no Embiid, but you still have the same guys, Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, along with Paul George, Caleb Martin, and Andre Drummond. That's your starting lineup here tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers, and we'll see what they can do against this group before we get to our best bets. Just pulling up the Clippers starters just to make sure we have
Harden, Mann, Powell, Jones, and
Zubac. Yes. Yep. That's the starting lineup for tonight for the Los Angeles Clippers. All right, let's get to our best bets tonight. Derek, see how we do here for this one tonight.
Hey,
and tonight,
don't attach me to this, man. Your record is your record.
The pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, let's run these down. See what we do here tonight. Start off with James Harden and Tyrese Maxey in the same game parlay. James Harden is averaging just under 10 assists on the season, so we gave him over 9.5 against the Sixers tonight. And Tyrese Maxey is right at 4, over 4.5 assists tonight with Paul George. Game 2, a little bit better, playing off of one another. Kyle, you mentioned it. Maybe get Andre Drummond going a little bit and finding the big man for an easy bucket. So went with 4.5 there for Tyrese Maxey in this particular case we're going there. 4.5, 9.5 for James Harden.
I think I'm going to have to fade Devon until further notice. We'll see.
Feeling good here. And over under, Norm Powell, 20.5 points. Yeah, I'm going over for Norm Powell. He'll be the one that scores a little bit tonight. Get out and transition a little bit, get some cheapies there. It's at minus 115. By the way, the same game parlay was at plus 190. If you want to do that one at Bet365, have added Norm Powell again, leading the team in scoring at 25, been scoring pretty well. 3 defensive wings here for the 76ers. Can they slow him down? But right now, really, I'm going with the over for Norm Powell at 20.5. And Nick Batum, had to bring him back in the mix. Never wanted him to leave. He also liked it here as well. But family back in Los Angeles, you understand the situation. Nick Batum, over 1.5 threes at plus 170. He always finds a way to just knock down 2 or 3 3-pointers. So went with that. So those are the same game parlay and the 2 individual picks tonight. Everybody, if you want to jump on in again, go to Bet365. You have time to sign up to become a new partner with Bet365. And our pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, our pregame pick segment. I don't know. I might be with Derek. We might have to say this is Devon's pregame pick segment.
I like it. Bree, change the whole thing. Just put my name up there. It's mine. I own it. And when I start winning, we keep them away from it because we don't want the bad mojo.
Hey, it's been hours as you're getting hammered on these losses. So.
I might have to start tracking this. This might have to become a thing.
Start tracking it, Derek, from here on out. Start tracking it. All right, folks, we'll be back after the game. As Ben Jammy says, I'm on my own. It's all right. That's all right. It's all right. We got a long way to go. It's a long season, and it'll be much easier, too, when they start winning and Joel Embiid is back in the lineup. We'll be back after the game for the Sixers Clippers. Let's see if the Sixers can pick up win number 2 on the season and win number 1 on this 3-game West Coast trip. For Derek, Kyle, and Bree, I'm Devon. We'll talk to you immediately after Sixers Clippers right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And this one, of course, was brought to you by our good friends from Coors Light. Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. We'll talk to you after the game. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.